Could Justin Jefferson be traded to the Falcons? Well, Bleacher Report proposed this wild blockbuster trade idea that I want to break down on today's video. And I know it's very outlandish and, well, to be honest, goofy, but I do think it's a really fun idea, and it's the off season, and I have nothing better to do, and you have nothing better to do, so why not spend 10 minutes hanging out with me talking about Justin Jefferson maybe coming to the Falcons? But before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's show, we are less than 40 subscribers away from reaching 22,000 here on the channel. We have been growing like a weed the last couple of months, so make sure you go ahead, hit that sub button down below. Now, before we get too deep in today's video, let me just say this will not happen. I do like to live in the world of it's the NFL, crazy stuff happens, never say never, but I'm confident that this will never happen. I put everything on this one not happening, which for a lot of you watching means it'll probably happen, so maybe you like that. But despite this having a no % chance of happening in my eyes, you can use that as an excuse to leave the video like now, and I wouldn't blame you for that, to be honest. But if you are a little bored and you are looking for a fun topic to divulge in for the next 10 minutes while you're in the bathroom avoiding work, hang out with me, because Bleacher Report suggested that the Falcons trade for Justin Jefferson and the Vikings get in return a first and a fourth round pick next year and Drake London. So before I give you my opinion, I do love to hear what you guys have to say. Surface level, would you do this trade? If you're Terry Fontenot, this comes across your desk and you get an option to say yes or no, what are you doing? Deal or no deal? For me, when I first saw that, I was like, of course, why wouldn't I say yes to that? Justin Jefferson, he's the best wide receiver in the NFL. But then the more I thought about it and the more I started preparing for this episode, the more I started to change my opinion on the matter. And I'm not sure if it is a slam dunk yes. Listen, go look at Justin Jefferson's stats throughout his 4-year career. And you can just stop me at any point and say, PD, the guy had 1,800 yards 2 years ago. Yes, of course, the Falcons would trade anything to get Justin Jefferson. And you wouldn't be wrong about that. But the question I kind of land on, and this is why Bleacher Report proposed this idea, is, well, what about reuniting Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson, right? The Falcons want to have some success now with Kirk Cousins, and maybe Justin Jefferson could be the final piece of the puzzle for them, yada, yada, yada. I'm not convinced that Atlanta, or specifically Kirk Cousins, needs Justin Jefferson to be a good quarterback. For starters, look at the numbers. Facts don't lie. Kirk Cousins, 54 games before Justin Jefferson arrived in 2020, completed 67% of his passes, a little over 14,000 yards, 94 touchdowns, 34 interceptions, and a great 100 quarterback rating. However, when Justin Jefferson arrived, you probably anticipated those numbers all to skyrocket. Sorta. Yards is up by 350-ish. Touchdowns is up, but I bet you didn't think it would be 110 to 94 as the ratio. Interceptions are up, and his quarterback rating is essentially the exact same. I personally expected Kirk Cousins to have vastly different stats from pre-Justin Jefferson to with Justin Jefferson, but that wasn't the case. And if your reasoning for trading for Justin Jefferson is the Falcons are going to win a shit ton of games, did Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson win a metric shit ton of games together in Minnesota? They went 35 and 32 together? No. I don't think recreating that is going to give you a lot of wins down in Atlanta. It got him one really good season in Minnesota, which was a premature playoff exit to Daniel Jones and the New York Giants. And those two are not solely responsible for 35 and 32, or even making up a vast portion of it. There's so many other contributing factors. But no, I'm not going to buy a line of, well, if you get Justin Jefferson, you're going to win a lot of games because him and Kirk Cousins were so good together in Minnesota. They were really good together in Minnesota, and they didn't win that many games. Then there's, of course, the element of moving on from Drake London, who, listen, I'm not going to try and sell you guys on Drake London being better than Justin Jefferson. That's okay. This is not a insult to Drake London. This is just simply an acknowledgement of there can be a lot of really good players at the same position. Just because one guy is better than another guy doesn't mean that other guy is bad at that job. It's just simply acknowledging Justin Jefferson is an all-pro wide receiver. Drake London can be a Pro Bowl wide receiver. That's perfectly fine. Everyone can be a winner in this scenario. But the other piece of the puzzle in this trade was the first-round draft pick going back to Minnesota. Now, I can't predict what that first-round draft pick will be next year. And that would be a huge factor in whether or not this trade would ever happen. Right? If Terry Fontenot were to be told from the future that 2025 first-round pick is pick number 1 in the draft, I don't think he does that trade. If it's pick 32, he may be much more considering of that trade because you're not going to find as great a value at pick 32 as you are at pick number 8, for example, which Atlanta has just squatted over the last few years. But just stick with me here, and let's say it's somewhere between picks 15 to 22nd. That kind of gets Atlanta in that 8, 9, 10, 11-ish, not quite, win range. That neck of the woods, all right? If you're wondering what kind of wide receivers can get drafted in that spot, there are really good wide receivers that have come from that range, right? JSN has gotten off to a good start in Seattle, along with Zay Flowers. Jordan Addison was awesome last year for the Vikings. He was the 23rd overall pick in the draft. Dotson and Burks, not as great as some other guys on this list. Same for Johnson, but you could definitely find good wide receivers in this range. Move back in time a little bit further. Justin Jefferson was the 22nd pick in the draft. You want to get your next Justin Jefferson, he doesn't have to be the top 10 pick in the draft. Like, you can find good wide receivers later in the draft compared to other position groups where it's not as easy to find great quarterbacks or edge rushers as you get later in the draft. There are drafts where the second-round wide receivers were better than the first-round wide receivers. Go talk to DK Metcalf and Deebo Samuel about that. Like, that does exist. And also, if you were to trade for Justin Jefferson, you'd have to make him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. That is the rumored asking price for Justin Jefferson, who, by the way, has been working on a long-term extension with the Vikings for over a year at this point, but there's some politics into it, right? Justin Jefferson may want to wait for CeeDee Lamb to get paid, so then Jefferson can go, well, I definitely more than what CeeDee Lamb just got. But if you're looking at the highest paid wide receivers, Justin Jefferson, without a doubt in my mind, will become the number 1 highest paid wide receiver. In fact, he'll be more than just the highest paid wide receiver. He will be the highest paid non-quarterback in the National Football League. He will surpass Nick Bosa, who currently holds that by average contract per year. So I'm projecting that Justin Jefferson gets somewhere in the neighborhood of a 4-year, $137 million deal. I wouldn't be surprised if the Vikings are trying to make this a a 6-year contract. But Justin Jefferson, who is 25 years old, he may want to hit free agency again and tap this well one more time before he turns 30 years old. And by the way, that's an average of $34.2 million, 4 years, $137 million. Nick Bosa is making on average $34 million a season. So this would surpass what Nick Bosa is getting. And you guarantee $100 million. So it's kind of like what Kirk Cousins got from the Falcons. 3-year, $100 million contract. Do the Falcons want to give out back-to-back identical contracts of $100 million in guarantee, give or take a little bit, within the span of 3 months? Arthur Blank may not. There's a lot of owners that probably wouldn't want to do that. So let me revisit this trade idea yet again. Surface level, it's hard not to be super stoked and pumped up about trading for Justin Jefferson. He's the best wide receiver in football. But after kind of talking through it a little bit, maybe you reached the same conclusion I did, which was my initial reaction was, hell yeah. And then I was like, well, you factor in everything else, and it's not like Justin Jefferson made Kirk Cousins, and it's not like Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson won a ton of games together. I'm not convinced that this is a trade the Falcons need to make. at the cost of moving on from a good ascending wide receiver in Drake London, moving on from a first-round pick where you could get another Justin Jefferson in that range, and also making Justin Jefferson the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. There are some legitimate pros and cons to this Bleacher Report trade idea. So let me ask you one more time. Would you still do this trade? Give me an accept or decline. This will sound crazy, but I'll decline. I mean, if this trade were to actually ever happen, which, like I said at the beginning of the video, it wouldn't, I wouldn't be distraught about it. Like, Justin Jefferson's a Falcon. That's awesome. Do they need to do that? No. Are they fine without this? Yes. I would decline, as batshit crazy as that sounds, and watch Justin Jefferson break the single receiving record from Calvin Johnson this year and put up Randy Moss touchdown numbers. I think that this Falcons team can do more than just tread water with Drake London and a first and a fourth and allocate funds elsewhere and not put it all into Justin Jefferson. So that's my 2 cents. That's going to do it for us on today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it's kind of a silly one, and listen, it's May 29th. It's the off season. There's going to be some silly episodes. That's just the nature of slow day in the news cycle.